Dulux has made a killing on today's call. It looks like we're just waiting for a few people to join. It looks like we are live, but let's we give it a couple of minutes for just people to join, guys, and then we'll crack on.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
It's good to be on today's call. I don't know about you, Kishan. I feel I've been on all day calls all day, and it's quite nice to do something different instead of using Teams. Use a new platform for once.
Yeah, it's nice to mix it up, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, I think we can probably start. Yeah, let's go for it. Hi everyone, welcome to QT Talks. This is episode 4. I'm Matt Wallace. Welcome today. I'm joined today by Kish and Nick, two my colleagues from the enterprise practice of QualiTest. They're going to share a little bit about themselves and their story at QualiTest. First, I'll tell you a little bit about QualiTest, my story, and also share some of the things we're going to be talking to today. So welcome. It's an absolute delight and pleasure to have so many people here today. So first of all, before I guess I introduce myself and tell you about my story and also talk about QualiTest, let me tell everyone about what is a QT talk for those that haven't joined us before. So in summary, a QT talk is really an opportunity to get to know a little bit about the business, find out about QualiTest, who we are, what we do, meet some of the great people that are working at QualiTest, get an insight, if you like, into our people, our culture, and some of the great opportunities and great experiences that people get involved in. And more importantly, learn a few things along the way. So Nick and Kish are two thought leaders from our enterprise practice, and they'll talk about themselves in a sec. And they're going to talk about some of the challenges, the approaches, and the customers we work with, and share some of their experiences. So we want this to be a learning experience. We want it to be very much an interactive experience. So welcome everyone. Please pop your questions in the comments and we'll come back to them at the end. So for a couple of lines about me. So I've been with QualiTest now for a year. My background prior to joining the company is an HR leader, very much in that tech space. I'm a bit of a geek at heart. I've tried testing and coding, but being honest, that's not my forte. I leave that to the experts like Nick and Kish to get deeply technical on things. My focus really at QualiTest is to create brilliant people experiences. We are very much a people business. Our people are our products, so we want to invest and grow our people. So for me, people are very much, I'm passionate about creating those amazing experiences to help people grow their careers as the company grows. When I'm not in the office, I'm a Brighton fan. Nick and Kish, please you can feel free to heckle me along the way. I know we're not doing so great in the league at the minute, and I'm not certainly betting my house on staying up this year. I've got an 8-year-old son who keeps me super busy, and when I'm not in lockdown, I do some crazy stunts for charity, like abseiling down tall hospitals and bits and pieces for good causes. But that's me in a nutshell. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just talking about QualiTest, sharing, I guess, our story as an organisation, and then I'll hand over to Nick and Kish. So QualiTest, who are we? Well, in a nutshell, we're a growing business. We're 20 years old. We're private equity owned. And along that journey, we started as, and we are now the world's largest pure play testing business. But actually, that probably is a bit of an understatement. We've actually grown and evolved and on a big growth journey. And we're just shy of 5,000 people globally. We offer, and we're certainly, testing is in our DNA, but actually we offer a range of services, not just testing, but development and search language specialization. We've been recognized heavily by Gartner over the last 5 years, and we're building on that as we grow as an organization. And we're growing through both M&A, so acquisition, but also commercial growth as well. As a business, it's a very much a people-centric organization, and we're global. So of those 5,000 people, they're split into a number of hubs globally. The US, including Mexico, UK and Europe in a number of sites. So Romania, Portugal, and 3 sites in the UK, India in 2 locations, and Israel in a couple of locations as well. And I think the point is, we're a people business, people are our products, and we want to invest in people, help them grow, help people grow within the business, join as consultants and rise up to kind of very senior roles. And we've got a number of cases where that's happened. And we also want to rotate and promote people in the organization into different locations. So it's something we do, and it's very much one of our strengths. So it's very common for people to come and join, say, the UK, and then work in the US or start in India and come across to the UK. There's a number of cases where that's happened, and it's something we do want because people are a business and we want to invest. But we're also a customer-centric organization, and we work in partnership with our customers and I don't really want to steal Nick and Kish's thunder, so I'll just touch on how we work with our customers. But we're very much strategic partnership. That's very much our focus. We're adaptable, and in that sort of workforce of 5,000 people, we have a lot of skills and a lot of talent. We're very adaptable, and we have a lot of transferable skills. So we offer quite broad portfolio of skills and experiences, from managed testing services through to development and a wide range of other things. But the point is, we're adaptable in our models, how we engage with our customers to provide strategic consultancy and advice to ultimately provide the best perfect solution and tailor opportunity for our customers. But I don't want to steal Nick and Kish's thunder. So that probably feels like a good opportunity for me to pause and hand over to Kish to share his story and share some insight. So Kish, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. So welcome everyone to the session. I'm Kishan Maisuria. I'm an Associate Vice President of QualiTest, and I head up delivery for the enterprise practice. Now, my day-to-day roles and responsibilities include working closely with clients and our delivery teams to ensure that our engagements are run well, that testing best practices is being followed, and that any risks and issues are mitigated accordingly. I also have a pre-sales capacity where I support our commercial teams in defining solutions to support new customers. Now, my journey with QualiTest started about 4 years ago. I came to QualiTest through an acquisition. I've a little bit about my history. I started out in testing, I should say, back in 2005, where I was testing mobile devices for a UK network provider. I started out testing WAP services. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. It was sort of the prehistoric view of the mobile version of the internet at the time. So, 16 years on, here I am at QualiTest, heading up delivery. Now, in terms of a little bit of background or some personal bits and pieces about myself, my biggest fear is snakes. Don't ask me why that is. It's just something that suddenly dawned on me in my younger years. I just can't be around them. They completely freak me out. In terms of favourite sports team, I support Liverpool, and of interest at the moment are movies and travel. So that's a little bit about me and who I am and what I do. I'm now going to hand over to my pretty counterpart, Nick, to give a quick introduction. So over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Kish. And before I start talking about myself, I just wanted to say thank you to Kishan for updating his profile picture. There's a bit of a running joke in the enterprise practice that he's been using a 10-year-old picture for probably the last 2 or 3 years, which has a little bit more hair than he's got at the moment.
There's definitely a difference there, isn't there? Yeah.
So thanks, Kish.
That's all right.
In terms of who I am, very similar to Kish. We're both AVPs within the enterprise practice. We both look after very similar things: delivery assurance, pre-sales, partnerships, recruitment, training. So it's quite a varied job. Probably the only difference is I have a foot in the US as well. But other than that, very much working in the very similar capacity. In terms of my journey, so I studied physics at university. I took a couple months out afterwards to go traveling around Southeast Asia. And then I joined a London-based consultancy on a graduate scheme. And that was the company that Kish worked for as well at the time. And then we were probably about coming up to 4 years ago, purchased by QualiTest. And the fact that Kish and I are still around is testament to how that transition went. In terms of some interesting facts about me, biggest fear, tight spaces. So that really came about during those travels. Actually, after uni, I traveled to Vietnam and visited the Chu Chi tunnels, which are really narrow network of tunnels about 10 meters underground. And as part of the tour, they were encouraging all of us to go through this tunnel system. It was wide enough for one person at a time. So we all went underground, and I suddenly realized I was sandwiched in between two people in a dirt tunnel 10 meters underground. And I quickly realized I had mild claustrophobia and took the first exit out. And since that point, I have not ventured anywhere too tight. Favorite sports team, Spurs. With the Liverpool fan on the call, I probably won't say anything more there. And in terms of my interests, I probably should have renamed this to lockdown interests, and it's just revolved all around cooking good food, enjoying my wine and other beverages, as well as walking the dog. Next slide.
Perfect. Thanks for that introduction, Nick. So what we want to do now is really give you a little bit of a taste of life within the enterprise practice. So talk a little bit about sort of the challenges that we face and how we help our customers. So it's not going to be in depth, we've only got a little bit of time. So it's just really to give you a snapshot, that sort of high level overview of what it's like working for QualiTest, working within the enterprise space. So Nick, do you want to walk us through or start off with what we mean by enterprise?
Yeah, cheers, Kish. So we're conscious there's likely to be a varied audience, so we wanted to start off with the basics and talk around our definition of what we're talking about in terms of enterprise systems and the enterprise landscape. So in the simplest terms, it's really the technology, the underlying technology that supports the everyday activities of the largest brands in the world. So it's the heart of their organization that knits everything together. So on this slide, you can see a number of different business functions called out. We've got human resources, manufacturing, supply chain, CRM, sales and marketing. This is really just to illustrate that the enterprise landscape conveys this entire picture. So it's across all industries, across all business functions. And hopefully from that, you can see how integral it is in terms of knitting the end-to-end business processes together. So this is the facilitator for the biggest businesses in the world.
And one thing to point out here is that enterprise isn't any single one application. It's generally a collection of applications coming together to provide that sort of end-to-end experience for customers, or that end-to-end experience for organizations in terms of supporting their business processes. So enterprise, operates across the board.
Thanks, Kish. Next slide, please. So the first slide was really talking around the business context of enterprise landscape. So supporting all of the business functions, supporting the entire end-to-end landscape. We mentioned applications in there. These are some example enterprise applications. So this is not an exhaustive list. This is really the applications we tend to work with most of our clients for the most part. and covers most of the market leaders within the space. So you've got the likes of SAP, Oracle, Microsoft Dynamics, Workday, Salesforce, etc. So a number of you would have heard of these systems before. And for those of you who haven't heard of these systems before, it's very likely that you would have touched on these at some point in your day-to-day life. So some of these are the applications that sit behind front-end e-commerce systems where you'd be placing your orders and shopping without even knowing that you're interacting with these systems. So these are really the applications that run your favorite brands.
And I think a couple of years back, there was a stat that was put out by SAP where I think 60 to 70% of all transactions made worldwide actually touch an SAP application at some point within their journey. So even if it's not taken on an SAP related application, at some point in processing that application, it hits an SAP system. So that kind of gives you a view of, you know, the scale of these types of applications and how they're used globally. And, you know, with the likes taken into consideration, Oracle and Microsoft Dynamics, you know, that percentage in terms of interacting with these types of applications through your day-to-day life is probably a lot higher than you know, the 60, 70%.
Yeah, definitely. So far we've talked around what do we mean by enterprise. We talked about the sort of more business focused, and we talked about the technology, the applications that run those businesses. This picture hopefully helps to marry the two together. So this is when we approach or when we engage on a client, we're really looking at the big picture. So we want to understand, and we have consultants in our team that are deep industry experts within particular areas of business process. So we look to understand the full picture. So we can see here, this is not a real example. We've come up with this ourselves. And you can imagine your favorite brand in place of this if you like. But essentially, if we take the business aspect first, you've got a company bringing in raw materials, manufacturing some goods, wholesaling those, also storing those in a warehouse. There may be other goods that they're purchasing in to store in that warehouse. These systems would also run your just-in-time supply chain, your picking, packing, dispatching, and routing that distribution network, coming up with the most efficient routes to get to various outlets. And then once it's in the outlets, once it's in the shops, that's where you would interact with these systems, and whether it's in terms of likely in terms of taking your payments. So in the simplest terms, we can distill this particular example down to buying goods in, making some products, moving them, and selling them. What you can see overlaid on this picture are just a number of example applications and enterprise systems that we talked through on the previous slide. And the purpose of this is just to show, once you bring in the systems into the picture, you can see, or you can imagine what a complex landscape it looks like. So you have a number of different enterprise systems, all fulfilling different tasks, and all of those support the data that's flowing from end to end, which is really what runs their business processes. So hopefully you can see within this picture how complex it looks as an organization. So you can imagine these are the systems. So we can see on the screen here maybe 8 or 9 systems. Each of those systems will have multiple interfaces. There'll be middleware sitting in between all of those, and the picture can be very complex. But these systems, combined with the business processes, are absolutely essential to running the daily operations of an organization. So, Kish, I know we spoke earlier, you had another example that you could run us through.
Yeah, that's right. Very recently, we've just helped a retailer in the UK with testing their replatforming of their website. And while we helped them with specific testing within the website domain, we also tested across their landscape. So it was ensuring that orders taken on the website are fulfilled in the back-end system, go through the warehouse, and then actually get delivered out to customers, while ensuring that the financial elements are also taken care of as well. So in terms of testing within this space, it's not just within the one system where you're making the change, it's the impact across the board. So it's that end-to-end consideration that the enterprise is really about, right? So it's looking beyond the manufacturing, or looking beyond the retail elements, and seeing what upstream, downstream impacts they could be.
Thanks, Kish. Next slide, please. So we've talked around some of the challenges that are involved in just running these large organizations in themselves, then overlaying that on top of complex technology. So Kish now is going to take us through some more in depth into the challenges we see on particular clients.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Nick. So based on our experience and the work that we've done with clients over the years, the main challenge of testing enterprise applications is knowing how to test effectively within this space. Now, by testing effectively, what I mean is ensuring that testing is correctly positioned and focused on the right areas. And by the right areas, what I mean is the areas that are crucial to an organization and that warrant the test investment. So it's avoiding the situation of both over-testing and under-testing. And when I say over-testing, it's testing for the sake of testing, right? So testing the elements that don't really require an investment or deliver an organization very little value. And at the same time, moving away from the situation where you simply haven't tested enough to cover your business risk. Now, it's important to note that testing within the enterprise domain isn't an easy task, and this is due to a number of different factors. The first is around the dynamic of enterprise applications, right? So what we know is that enterprise applications are large, they're complex, they're heavily integrated. Most will have a global related presence where they'll have geographic variations. So from a functional perspective alone, there's a lot to cover. In addition to the scale of functionality that enterprise applications cover, the second consideration is how these applications are used by organizations and the fact that they tend to be mission critical, right? So mission critical meaning that they're essential to an organization's core day-to-day operations. Now, because of this and because of the way in which they're used, failures within this space usually carry with them a high level of business impact. So be that financial, be that brand damage or reputational damage from a failure, or in certain instances, depending on the type of industry that an organization exists within, it could lead to regulatory or legal consequences as well. So from a risk perspective, there's also a lot to be concerned about when making changes within this space. Now, the situation is further complicated by the fact that projects are naturally constrained. So organizations will have a limit, right? They don't have endless resources and are not in a position to test everything. So the challenge really remains on how do you balance these various factors and test effectively in the enterprise space. Now, each project or change, be it enterprise related or on a standalone system, will bring with it a level of risk, right? Now, the level of risk for an enterprise related application is a lot greater for the reasons we've just kind of gone through. Organizations will test to try and mitigate against business risk. Now, the difference between the business risk that you have and the testing that's performed is the level of exposure an organization has. And the question remains, how do you position or focus your testing so that it is effective, helping to mitigate business risk and reduce your overall level of exposure while staying within the bounds or the constraints of the actual project, right? So it's how do you not overrun timelines? How do you not blow the budget, but still test on the elements that are crucial, that matter to the business, to ensure that you're not taking a high level amount of risk moving, your changes into your production estate. So I've just kind of, in a nutshell, talked about some of the challenges that we face with testing in the enterprise space. What I want to do now is just kind of touch on our approach. And again, it's going to be a little bit of a flavor as to how we approach testing with the enterprise space, how we work. If there's any questions, if you want to know more, feel free to put it in the chat, feel free to get in touch and we can go through some more detail for you. So moving on to our approach. So while our engagements with customers and the types of service we deliver from customer to customer may vary, ultimately our approach in how we help our customers remains the same. So in essence, we work closely with customers to maximize their scale and effectiveness of testing to best reduce their level of exposure to business risk. And we work to achieve this by paying attention to and balancing the three main aspects that drive testing, which are time, cost, and quality. Usually, any testing undertaken on any engagement is a compromise between these three variables. Generally, what we do is we work with our customers to find a balance that suits their needs. But ultimately, what we try to do is work to drive efficiencies and optimize the testing. So our outlook when it comes to engaging with customers is helping them on their testing journey, really by minimizing their cost of testing while helping them save time and increase the overall level of quality of their systems. I mean, in addition to our delivery approach and tool accelerators, which have been developed over multiple years, our success with assisting clients successfully in this space is achieved through our dedicated enterprise team. Now, our team comprises of heavily experienced consultants who have a vast amount of experience in delivering change within enterprise programs and projects. Now, one thing that makes our team unique, or our consultants unique, is that they have a deep-rooted knowledge and understanding of business processes and a functional working knowledge of applications. A lot of the guys that we employ within the team have certifications in SAP, they have certifications in Oracle, so they know the technologies that we're working with, right? In addition to that, they also know testing, right? So it's using our people, using our processes and our tools. What we're able to do effectively is to bridge the gap between the technical and then the business elements of an enterprise change, and work with customers to focus on business processes and areas of the solution that are both not only business critical, but carry the greatest level of risk, therefore helping customers to increase the effectiveness of their testing and reducing their level of exposure. So that kind of gives you a flavor as to kind of how we approach it, what we set out to do and help our customers with.
Kish, the only thing I wanted to add there, which was what you've alluded to exactly in this piece, was we, as an organization, we take a customer-centric approach. So we look to form partnerships with our clients. We look to position ourselves as trusted advisors, and we are independent as an organization. And it's just to call out, in addition to that, with that partnership, we look to support customers through their projects, with their large-scale implementations, but also post-go live in their BAU, in their operation activities. So when some of the other players in the market will typically engage to deliver a project, they will stay for their contracted hypercare, and then they'll leave the organization. Where we position ourselves in the market is that continuation through those project executions and just a mainstay within that operational BAU environment as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Nick. Sorry, we just skipped ahead on the slides. Can we go back one? Thank you. Now, you went too far back now. Yep, there you go. Or one more. Thank you very much. So our approach now, without going into the details of how we engage and interact with clients at the operational level, what Nick and I wanted to do is just to touch on a few areas of our approach, really at the high level, to give you a flavor of how we help our customers deliver effective testing solutions. So the first area we wanted to talk about was planning. So ultimately, everything that we do starts with in-depth planning and preparation. Our recommendation is that we always engage early to try and ensure that testing is given the consideration that it needs from the outset of a program or a project, and that focus remains on business goals and business readiness. Now, as part of what we do, I know we're testing, but the enterprise practice generally looks beyond the area of test and explores options at the program level or the project level to drive efficiencies, reduce duplication, and create opportunities to shift left and test early. So everything around planning and everything that we do is all with the mindset of driving efficiencies, getting better at how we're testing, making sure that we're testing the right thing, creating opportunities to extend the coverage, etc. And all that happens at the outset of the project. Next slide, please. Nick, do you want to walk us through the precision?
Yeah, I'll walk us through precision. So we mentioned previously, we look to position ourselves as partners with our clients, and what we find is the first step of that partnership is really understanding them as a business, understanding what drives them, understanding their needs, what their key challenges are that we can help them address. And with that knowledge, it allows us to be very targeted and very precise, and we'll talk through some of those now. So in terms of precision, we can distill it from a very high level in this context to people, process, and tools. So from a people perspective, we've touched on it already, we've got certified domain experts that have the same certifications as the system integrators. They're deep process experience in particular functional areas. And how that helps them drive efficiencies is they have the knowledge to know where to focus their attention. They know the hotspots. They've been through numerous implementations. They understand the business processes like the back of their hand. So that allows them to be really focused in their approach. In terms of processes, it's really around our structure. So we have a defined methodology that everyone within the organization understands thoroughly. And what that means is everyone knows what to do when. So there's little time wasted. And essentially, once the team engage, everyone knows what to do, and it runs like clockwork. And the last piece is just around the tools and accelerators. So if we take like a scoping precision exercise, for example, we come with risk-based tooling, which helps us to map clients' business processes in terms of their business impact and their technical risk. So we're not just coming from a technical standpoint. It's really coming back to what we said previously. It's all about marrying those two worlds together. So within that accelerator, we've got a number of criteria we use, and it gives us a score ranking of those business processes. So that gives us an overall risk profile for the implementation. Depending on what's changing, how does that impact the business processes? And within that as well, we always ensure that those business processes are fully traceable back to the requirements. So the reason why the business is implementing this change and what they want to get out of it. So it's always important to have that traceability back. And with that risk-based accelerator, it allows you to do a number of other things as well. So informed decision-making, because you can see, for example, on that sheet, there's a breakdown of decomposition of the business processes. You could maybe change a small area. I think it's a small area. Maybe if we take SAP, for example, change one transaction code, you can quickly do a search on that accelerator to find out how many different business processes that impacts, and they're all categorized in terms of priority 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And it's also great for audit purposes. But that's just focusing on the scoping piece. But essentially, what we look to do with that, this whole piece around precision, is the end goal is to decrease the number of test cases that an organization has to run, while maintaining, or if not increasing in a lot of cases, the actual coverage. So you're essentially getting more bang for your buck. For the amount of effort you're putting in, you are getting a higher output of quality. So yeah, and on that, actually, we've got plenty of examples recently. Kish was mentioning one to me before the call, where we engaged on a client and we reduced their test cases by over 70% while maintaining the coverage. So if we go back to the time, cost, and quality point of view, you can see the cost is going to be significantly less. You're saving almost 70% of your effort. The time is going to be significantly less. You've got far less to do. And what we've said in terms of coverage is you maintain that level of quality that you're getting from this full suite. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that, Kish.
Yeah, I think in addition to that as well, what it does is reducing the total number of test cases while maintaining that functional coverage allows organizations to create opportunities. So, you touched on it before, but it's the opportunity to then potentially extend coverage, reduce your risk further, and then utilize those resources for other things. So going back to the example that Nick just mentioned now, for that particular client, they were quite heavily dependent on their business teams when it came to releases, etc. I think they employed a team of like 30 plus business representatives to test over a duration of 2 weeks. I think it was in excess of like 1,500 test cases. And through the exercise that we took them through, we managed to reduce their test cases all the way down to sort of the low hundreds and save them a massive amount of time and reduce the reliance on the business teams. And then we further help them by introducing automation into the equation, and then getting those tests to be running on demand whenever they need it. So, there was a couple of savings that we helped them with, and they realized a massive sort of benefit off the back of it. So there's multiple dimensions that we can look at this stuff on. And, I'll come on to the acceleration piece in a moment, but that'll give you a little bit more context in terms of how we work with our customers to accelerate the testing and what they do.
Yeah, Thanks, Kish. And just to summarize this section, we take that risk-based approach because that's what enables us to be precise. It gives us informed information that allows us to make data-driven decisions around what to test first. And essentially that's what it comes down to. It's all about testing what matters to the business. Kish, could you walk us through our approach to acceleration?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So while we work to focus the testing effort on what matters most, we also look at opportunities like we've just discussed to increase the velocity and the pace of testing. Now, over the years, what we've done is we've built up an extensive range of document accelerators, predefined scripting templates, a library of testing assets in major applications, including SAP, Oracle, to accelerate the testing effort and shorten the overall amount of time taken to test. Now, in addition to these standard templates and accelerators that we have, we also try and utilize automation where possible to further drive efficiencies in testing. We just touched on an example of how we've helped a customer recently with their testing and speeding up their regression testing through automation. But to help us on this journey, QualiTest also has pre-built frameworks that enable us to stand up automation in a very short space of time, allowing us to add value very quickly. So it's, traditionally when you think about automation, you have to account for time taken to set up a framework to create your underlying assets and then build up your scenarios. Whereas now we've got these frameworks that allow us to hit the ground running and to have working automation deployed in a very short space of time. So, alongside everything else, we look for opportunities in how we can reduce the total amount of time it takes to test and create those opportunities. So Nick, do you want to just summarize then on the last one?
Yeah, I'll close us off. So in summary, we wanted to leave everyone with some key takeaways, which are essentially distilling down what we've just spoke to in each of those sections and just leave you with our key messaging, our mantra for each of those to take away with you. So in terms of planning, we always say plan with the end in mind, and it's all about strategy when we say that, less tactical planning and more strategic. And that's all about engaging at the right time with the right focus. And for our next one, precision, it's about testing smarter, not harder. So that comes right the way back to the example we gave where the 70% reduction of test cases and the same amount of coverage. So that would be a perfect example of testing smarter, not harder. And it's really about focusing on what matters to the business. And then finally, with acceleration, it's all about keeping pace with the rate of change. I think we know as a global society, the rate of change seems to be increasing year on year. So that's becoming more and more important to remain competitive in the market. And as Kish touched on, it's all about establishing a framework to increase velocity. And once clients get into a steady state, it allows the opportunity for some continuous improvement on those processes. So that's it from us. I think it's over to you now, Matt, for Q&A.
It is. Thank you, Kish. Thank you, Nick. I have to say, fascinating insight into the enterprise practice. I certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience did as well. And just looking at the comments, the questions that come in, there's clearly a lot of passion and interest there. So just I guess a couple of questions that have come in. First of all, thank you everyone for raising the questions. We've had a number of people inquire about whether QualiTest is hiring. The simple answer is yes, we are. If you look at the link on the banner that's going through, please have a look at our careers page, look out for opportunities. And anybody who's raised a question in the comment, one of our team will get in contact. So first of all, thank you so much for asking whether we're hiring, and we certainly are. We've had, I guess, questions, Kish and Nick, in two camps. For one about career progression and development. I know both of you have been with the organisation for some time, so it'd be good to hear your views on that. And the second, specifically about testing. So let me have a look at the questions. So I guess the first one, just looking at sort of the first one, Kumar has asked some great questions, actually. The first one would be, what sort of techniques are used to introduce shift left testing? Because you refer to that a lot in your discussion. So it'd be good to understand a little bit about that and share some views.
Okay, Nick, shall I go on this one?
Yeah, you can go first. So I've got a few comments.
In terms of what we look for in terms of helping our customers to shift left is opportunities around how we develop and test within the enterprise space. So it's not just waiting for the development to finish before we start testing. We're really looking at opportunities where, we can potentially start reviewing materials such as requirements, looking at plans, helping to prove the solution in a static format before it gets to the point at which we've actually got code. In addition to that, we also look at opportunities as to whether the application under development presents opportunities for us to shift or to actually test early. So if there's going to be a phased delivery and drops of code coming in, can we get in early and start the testing sooner so that we flush out defects? But it all kind of comes back to looking at that specific engagement, understanding the delivery, and then making recommendations in terms of being able to prove the solution or drive quality from the outset.
No, thank you, Kish. That's some good stuff there. Nick, any builds from you?
The only thing I was going to say to that was just echo the comments. It comes back to what we said earlier, which is all about engaging early. It's to shift left. You really need to be engaged as early as possible, so you can be in those conversations in terms of influencing the plan from a quality perspective. You can be reviewing the design, functional specs, technical specs, requirements, and looking for quality gaps within those. And that's not just from a functional perspective, that's from a non-functional perspective as well. So we've seen it a number of times, people don't ask, or questions are not asked necessarily of non-functional requirements in the very early stages, and then clients end up with solutions that are not fit for their business use. They have middleware that's unable to cope with the volumes that they require as a business. So it's all about getting involved early and having that spotlight on quality from the get-go.
And that's a really good point, Nick. What we do is we take a holistic approach. So it's not just about the functional elements. What we do is we look at the non-functional elements as well, right? So it's everything from a performance, from a security perspective. It's what do you need to get that enterprise change or that solution live?
Good stuff. No, go on, Kish.
No, I'm done.
No, some good. Thank you, guys. There's some great points there. One of the other questions we had was, I guess, building on a question from Megan. What did both of you enjoy most at QualiTest? And also, Nick, as you joined as a graduate, what's been your sort of experiences and roles that you've taken throughout your sort of tenure at QualiTest? So maybe, Kish, do you want to answer the first question? And then, Nick, you take the second part of that.
So I think in terms of what I most enjoy about QualiTest is the people, really. So it's the team that we work with, right? We've got a really good relationship with sort of all levels of the organization. So it's not like you can't approach people. It's not like you're a number. It's very much, like you said, Matt, earlier, a people organization where, everyone's willing to help out, to chip in, to offer support. And I think that's the best thing about working at QualiTest for me.
Perfect. Thanks, Kish. And Nick, it'd be good to hear some of the roles you had and fulfilled in your career, because you joined as grad and worked your way up. So it'd be great to get some of the insight.
Yeah, so I joined in a one-year graduate scheme. I think it was about eight or 9 years ago now. And on that graduate scheme, it was great actually, because there was a good level of foundation knowledge that I was able to take on. So there was time involved in that 1 year scheme to really build up my knowledge before going out into the real world, if you like. So coming from a physics background, it wasn't necessarily an IT background. It was, I'd not used many computer systems as part of my degree. It was much more chalk and blackboard mathematical equations. It was
a lot of lab work, was it?
Yeah, quite far away from what I do at the moment. But there were some key skills I picked up there, which is it's fundamentally a problem-solving degree, and I was able to take that into my graduate scheme at QualiTest. So yeah, as a whole, I was the initial month. It was all about going through some classroom training with my peers and with some of the leaders of the organisation. But then the good aspect of it was I then was pushed into the real world fairly quickly, which was good. It was great for my exposure. I think I've probably worked since I started over 40 plus clients on projects expanded across functional, automation, performance. So yeah, I really had the opportunity to try everything. And then I found out what I like. So, and that's across those areas, particularly functional and performance, operating from the most junior level to like program management level across those two in particular. So yeah, I'd say great opportunities, and which is why I'm still here, obviously.
And still smiling. Yeah.
Yeah, still smiling. But yeah, and what I'd just say on top of that, I always found that if I had the desire to progress and take on more responsibility, there was always somebody willing to give it to me. So I think it was that approach of constantly pushing myself to take on more responsibility that helped me progress.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Nick. There's some good insight there, and I think there's certainly some good lessons. I guess as a sort of build on that, there's been a question from Georgina, and I think it's probably one for both of you, Nick and Kish. What skills do you need to work in enterprise? You know, what makes someone successful in enterprise?
Go first.
Shall I kick us off? Yeah. So
I'll have to go first. Up to you.
No, I'll go first because you're probably going to say the same things as me. In terms of what skills are great to bring, I'd say, again, problem solving, that helped me from my degree and coming into the job I'm doing at the moment. Also, I'd say an inquisitive mind, especially around business and business processes. So really looking to understand the big picture around organizations, having an interest in the inner workings of those large companies that everybody hears about. I found it quite interesting to get involved and, you know, sort of underneath the skin of it and seeing how they operate. So I'd say an interest for business process and also obviously a passion for technology.
Sounds good.
I would echo exactly what Nick said. You know, I did teach him well, so he's saying exactly what I would have said anyway. So, really, what we're looking for is guys who can think dynamically, think on their feet, who, like Nick said, understand the bigger picture, and that's really important in the enterprise practice. So it's not just about tapping away on keyboards and ensuring that when you press one button, a calculation comes out that's accurate. It's looking at sort of taking it up a level and looking at the business process, right? So understanding how that affects the business, how is it important to that business, and then understanding the context of what you're doing and how it's adding value. So, you know, what we look for when we do take guys on within the enterprise practice is that sort of, you know, thought leadership, those people who are willing to sort of go the extra mile, work to understand what's going on and take that proactive approach. And I think that's what's really key is someone that's proactive, someone that's hardworking, and, you know, that they're not afraid to sort of dig into the detail and just get on with it, really.
No, some good advice there. There've been a kind of a couple of questions specifically around API testing, and it's something obviously QualiTest uses. What's your views and opinions on API when it comes to enterprise, and, you know, does it have a place, and how relevant is it for enterprise? Kish, probably one for either of you.
Yeah, I can give my view. In terms of its relevance, it's definitely relevant. It's all about the integration between different applications. We see APIs all over the place, and I can speak from my performance testing experience. there is definitely involvement in APIs in the integrating sort of front-end applications to your back-end applications. I gave the example earlier around issues with middleware. That is a constant challenge we see with performance testing and just general performance issues with untested APIs. So there definitely is a space for it. We have a number of different services and different phases of testing within those services. So it's one that's probably covered more on the unit side, I'd say, from a functional perspective, and our guys generally tend to get involved from an end-to-end business process perspective. So really taking the business approach, but from a performance testing at least, it's definitely relevant, and it's something that I've tested on a number of different clients. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Kish.
No, and exactly the same, really. So it's something that's becoming ever more popular, something that we're seeing a lot more of, and we're helping a number of customers at the minute to test their APIs using tools as well as doing it manually. So it's something that we are involved with and that we recognise as something that's of value.
Great stuff. I think we've probably got time for one more question, Nick and Kish. So probably let's before we sort of wrap up. So I guess if you were to give everyone one kind of, let's say, piece of advice or one takeout, what you most like about working for QualiTest, what would it be? And why don't we start, Nick? Why don't you go first? You lead off.
Yeah, I mean, my first, and I think you asked most people in enterprise practice, and most people do say the people. We do have quite a good, we do have good camaraderie in the practice. But seeing as Kish already stole that one, I will go with the variety. So I know that and that's why I got into consulting in the first place, because I know as an individual, the variety is really something that keeps the job interesting. So I would say that exposure to variety helps keep us all interested, keep us on our toes, keep us learning quickly. So yeah, I'd say variety.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Nick. Kish, I guess same question.
Yeah, I mean, I've already touched on it. For me, it was the team really, but Nick raises a really good point. What we do as an organization is just testing. So, you get the opportunity not just to do functional testing or manual testing, but really to get involved with things that are quite up and coming, are quite unique, like crowd testing. You get to see security testing and performance. So it's that variety coupled with the people really that is the best thing of working at QualiTest. I don't think you get the chance to get bored. Is probably the best way of putting it. Every day is eventful and unique.
I would certainly echo that. I think for me, why do I like working for QualiTest? For me, I think it's the fact as an organisation we're growing and evolving, and I think it's the opportunities that it offers to everyone to grow personally. And I think Nick and Kish, you're certainly evidence of that. Of people who've grown in the business. And you've sort of grown your careers at the organisation and continue to do so. So I think there's some really good learnings and good sharing. So Kish, Nick, I guess on behalf of the audience, we've had a very large global audience today. So you attracted a good crowd. So thank you for sharing your insights. Have been some good stuff. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone has. So thank you guys. It's been a pleasure. And I guess to summarise, thank you everyone for joining. Looking forward to the next QT Talks. And thank you everyone who's raised a question about hiring. And if you're interested in talking to us more about joining QualiTest and joining the team, then just talk to one of the recruiters and also share your interest on the careers page below. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next QT Talks.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.